get started here. Again, my name is Marshawn Williams. I am the lead volunteer program associate here at NFTE, a part of the Midwest and West regions with NFTE. And would like to just welcome you all to today's Innovation Lab. Today's topic is going to be innovation with purpose, turning global challenges into bold solutions. So again, we're excited to have you all here. NFTE is proud to host these sessions for our competitors in the World Series of Innovations, help you all to level up your ideas and build real-world solutions for global challenges. Now, again, before we get started, I do want to know that today's session isn't designed for direct feedback on individual ideas. Instead, our speaker today will be sharing the frameworks and strategies that you all can use to evaluate and strengthen your own submissions. So today we are joined here by Kristoffer Kizer. He is a venture capitalist for an accredited small business consultant and responsible AI leader who has helped Fortune 500 brands guide brand and product innovation and initiatives. He's a two-time NFTE National Volunteer of the Year. More specifically, this year he actually won the Volunteer of the Year at our national competition. And he's a member of NFTE's Volunteer Hall of Fame as well. He has spent years empowering young entrepreneurs to launch, build, and scale fundable companies. And I am thrilled to pass it over to him. All right, Kris, the floor is yours.
All right. Thank you so much, Marshawn. And feel free to give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. Make sure, put it in chat if you guys can see my screen. Perfect. Okay. All right. I got the thumbs up. Okay. Perfect. So excited to present to you guys today. I wanted to do something more focused on the practicality and frameworks and kind of give you guys different things that I have used in my career over the years between working with large Fortune 500 companies, but then also startups as you guys are thinking through projects, but also your ideas for your submissions for the World Series. So today is all about turning global challenges into bold solutions, and it's centered primarily on how you, as young innovators, can transform real-world problems into world-changing impact. So let's go ahead and get started. The question of always people want to know is, who am I? Why am I qualified to speak on the subject matter? So I just want to show you some of the brands that I've worked with: Marlboro, McDonald's, Whirlpool, 3M, Disney, Brown-Forman, Marvel. Fun fact, my team actually did all of the promotions and the media planning when it came to Marvel's Avengers Endgame. So if you've seen that movie, go ahead and just drop it in the chat. It's one of my favorite products. I've worked with Coca-Cola, I've worked with Kellogg's, Porsche Cars, and the Alzheimer's Association. So before we dive into some frameworks, I want to give you guys some quick context around innovation. One of the first things I want you guys to always remember, if you don't remember anything else from today's presentation, please remember that innovation does not equal tech or technology. Innovation is all about solving real human problems. As an investor, I have found that 90% of startups, they did not fail because of lack of funding or capital. They failed because they started with identifying technology versus trying to verify whether or not that there was a real problem that people were willing to pay for this particular solution. Most people start out with, oh, I want to build this, but there's no real problem behind it. And to kind of give you guys context around when we talk about real world challenges, it goes back to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. I'm sure you guys are aware, but something you may not be aware is that the UN has estimated $12 trillion. That's right, trillion with a capital T in market opportunities when it comes to addressing any of these 17 goals. And there are roughly nearly 380 million new jobs that are tied directly to solving these SDG aligned challenges. So that's why innovation in this context is super powerful and really important, because there's a lot of money that could be made if you want to build a startup, if you ever want to build a business, but also create jobs and to accelerate economic growth. For those of you who are in places like Toronto, Bulgaria, Ukraine, when you look at other countries, there's a lot of global economic growth that you can connect right back down to the SDGs. 9 out of 10 young people have reported wanting careers that contribute to global impact, right? If that's you, go ahead and put it in the chat. And then I wanted to also remind you guys the SDGs, they're not abstract. These 17 goals, these are, think of them as like global priorities. They reflect real world issues that are impacting billions of people, from food insecurity, climate risk, economic inequality, digital divide, you name it. And I want to introduce you to this other concept. It's called moonshot thinking. And the way moonshot thinking works is it's all about conjuring up 10x solutions rather than trying to solve for 10% incremental improvements. What does that mean? Well, instead of trying to come up with a new feature for an existing product, what if you can reimagine how the entire system works or process, or just reimagine how we do things as humans? What I love about moonshot thinking is that big problems attract big talent, big excitement, big impacts. Moonshot thinking also forces you to redesign the system and not just try to make it that much better. But more importantly, to come up with viable moonshots, you need both imagination and evidence. The other idea around innovation is that always view emerging technologies like blockchain, artificial intelligence, robotics, quantum technology, Internet of Things, you name it, crypto, see them as they're just tools. Okay. Technology is the accelerator. It should never, ever be the starting point. Technology is just a delivery mechanism that enables you to fulfill on the real innovation, which should be the transformation of how might you make people's lives better. Now, I want to give you an overview of the innovation process, a very practical scientific approach to building world-changing ideas. So starting with step one, you always want to create a high-impact problem statement. Step two, you want to conduct a root cause analysis. Step three, you want to formulate a hypothesis statement. Step four, create a bold solution statement. Step five, you want to create that moonshot vision. Step six, communicate a one-line pitch. Step seven, this is where it gets really fun, because now you start to think through the commercialization of your idea. It's no longer just a class project. So step seven is all about how do you build a one-page commercialization plan. Step eight is when you start thinking about the intellectual property. What does your intellectual property strategy, what does that look like? And then last but not least, my favorite part is when you start to think about all the different funding choices. And don't worry, we'll go over each step because I will show you a real life example momentarily. So let's practice. Let's actually break this. Let's go through the actual innovation process and let's go through this. So we are going to start off with a case study in Sustainable Development Goal number 16. Like I said, you always want to start with a strong problem statement. Clear problem statements, they separate real innovation from class projects. And the problem statement that I have created thus far around Sustainable Development Goal number 16 is, let's say we want to address the issue of youth legal justice. So the problem statement reads, over 1.2 billion young people aged 15 through 24 globally, which is approximately 16% of the world's population, live in societies who lack access to transparent legal information, and this is leading to widespread misinformation about their rights. As a result, individuals aged 15 through 24 disproportionately face preventable legal issues, delayed justice processes, and discrimination when interacting with institutional systems. You see how crisp that problem statement is. You see how detailed. You see the data, and you notice how I've cited my source on where I got the data from. Down at the bottom is, if you were tackling this issue, one of the things I always like to do is, when I know I have my problem statement, then I want to start to ask this question: how might we ensure every person on earth, every young person on earth, can access justice as easily as they access TikTok or WhatsApp, right? So you see how we just took what some may perceive a complex problem statement, and we came up with just that moonshot. We're trying to build that moonshot vision just by asking such a question. Now let's move on to the next step. But before, let me explain what a root cause analysis is. A root cause analysis is all about, you're trying to get down to the real source of the problem. Part of innovation is, we don't want to curate solutions to address symptoms. We want to get to the heart of the matter. So a root cause analysis is a structured problem solving method used to identify the deepest underlying reasons why a problem is happening, not just the symptoms that we see on the surface, instead of reacting to visible issues. RCA for short. It's all about answering the question, what is causing this? And you ask this question again, again, and again until we uncover the fundamental source of the problem. So in this case, when it comes to youth legal justice, a simple root cause analysis may look like this. A core insight that I found is that young people are not facing legal challenges because they lack intelligence or motivation. They are facing them because the justice system was never designed with youth accessibility in mind. So the barriers are structural, they're informational, and they're cultural. And if I had to put those in three different buckets of what these causes consist of, I came up with cause number one: legal systems are built for institutions, not young people. Cause number two: youth rely on informal, unreliable sources for legal guidance. And then cause number three: institutional distrust is high and pathways to justice are typically unclear, right? So those are the three primary causes as to why we have, going back to the problem statement, why we have that. So if I had to, again, drill this down to think of that moonshot lens, now I want to, let's say I want to hone in on a particular cause and just kind of go deeper on that. I might ask a question like, which root cause is most likely to create a 10x improvement, not a 10% fix, right? So again, these are things just to get your minds going, just to get the light bulbs flying. And coming from the root cause analysis, you move into step 3. Now let's formulate a hypothesis statement. Kind of reminds you like the scientific method, where your hypothesis statement might read something like this. If underserved youth are provided with a clear, culturally relevant, real-time legal guidance using channels they already access daily, then they will be able to make safer, more informed decisions and reduce preventable legal conflicts before they escalate. So part of formulating your hypothesis statement is you always want to have an if and then statement. So you notice how the if is bolded and it's underlined, and then you notice how I have the then. So this is my hypothesis, okay? And then I start to ask myself, what if this guidance was not just helpful, but instant, okay? Intelligent and universally accessible. See, now we really start to think through, how might we make this guidance instant, intelligent, and universally accessible? So you notice how this hypothesis statement is helping me think through which which delivery mechanisms, like the different technologies that I listed, which technologies that may be able to help me craft a good solution to address this problem. And this is where we get into step 4, when we start to identify technology as that delivery mechanism to build our solution statement. So it might read something like this. I'm a venture capitalist, I'm an investor, so I'm around these technologies all the time. So feel free to process what as I present here, but what if we build a decentralized AI-powered micro-legal guidance network that gives youth real-time, culturally relevant legal information through platforms they already use, using a combination of AI legal co-pilots, blockchain-based verification of information, and youth-centered UX, stands for user experience. This system delivers trustworthy guidance at the moment a legal issue begins. Okay. You see how I've started to intertwine some functionalities of artificial intelligence, blockchain. So you see how now we're starting to really figure out, this is what this solution is going to look like, because we're really crafting the solution statement at this stage. And if I want to remember, going back to that moonshot thinking, this is all about imagining a future where every young person has a pocket size legal shield, if you will, instantly available, incorruptible, transparent, tailored, and always on. So you see how I'm priming you to kind of think through, okay, now we're getting somewhere. We're getting to not just an idea, but now we're starting to form somewhat of a potential product or prototype. And this is where I want to pause to kind of help you connect the dots of, part of innovation is that systemic reimagining of how the legal access works. Remember what I said about innovation, right? So we're not trying to make things incrementally better. We're trying to reimagine how things are done in the first place, making justice preventable, personalized, but also democratic. Okay. Because here's what we believe: instead of forcing the youth to navigate complex, confusing, biased legal systems after problems escalate, this solution could transform justice access into something that's immediate, it's transparent, it's localized, and is verifiable. And that could mean that it turns legal knowledge traditionally controlled by institutions into a decentralized, real-time support network that empowers young people before harm even occurs. You see how we arrived here? We're not, again, this is not an app. This is not a chatbot. I hear so many pitches of we're going to build this app or we're going to do this, we're going to do this. No. This is how you get to world-changing impacts, by asking the important questions. And now let's envision the moonshot. We're about to take off. Moonshot thinking, like I said, it's all about imagination, right? And so part of igniting the imagination in your minds and in your brains, you have to start asking yourself questions like, imagine a world where every young person carries a pocket-sized legal shield, an incorruptible, always on guardian that gives you real-time, culturally relevant legal guidance, clarity, the moment you need it. That's the future we're building. And I want to pause right there. Put it in chat if this was something that existed today. Would you like access to it? Go ahead and put it in chat. If you're like, yeah, me, you can go ahead and just put it in the chat. But you see how we came to this moonshot vision we started with the problem statement. We conducted a root cause analysis. And then we kind of drilled down the insights from the root cause analysis. We formed a hypothesis. That hypothesis led us to the solution statement. And now the solution statement is enabling us to reimagine a better future for those we are trying to serve. That's the power of moonshot thinking. And once we have an idea of the future that we want to reimagine, now let's try to figure out, how do we communicate? How do we communicate our ideal solution in a one-line pitch? Some may say elevator pitch. So I came up with something along the lines like this: a decentralized, always-on legal companion that puts real-time verified guidance in every young person's pocket, protecting their rights the moment they're at risk. That's it. So if anyone were to ask me about what am I trying to build, I have some options. I can take them through the rationale and the process, or I can just communicate the one-liner. And if anyone wants to learn more about it, then I can take them behind the scenes and show them how we arrived here. But as an investor, these are things that I care about. And then I want you to kind of help me explain the problem and then market size. But that's outside of the scope of today's webinar. But this is how you communicate world-changing ideas so you can enable world-changing impacts. Now that we've done all the hard work as far as identifying the problem, synthesizing the insights, coming up with a solution statement, and reimagining a new future for it. And then we have our one-liner. Let's talk about how do we commercialize this. So this is bonus. I'm going to walk you guys through how you can actually take an invention or an idea and how do you commercialize it? Meaning, how do we monetize it? How do we make money? How do we raise capital for it? So let's go a little deeper here. Part of commercialization is you want to break down your core solution. So if we know that we're building a decentralized, always on legal companion, there's a few different technologies that's going to be integrated. We have AI powered legal co-pilots that delivers real-time culturally relevant micro guidance. But then we have blockchain verification functionality. We have a youth-centered user experience. And then we have proactive micro legal alerts, right? And so you go down the rabbit hole of coming up with your value proposition. One of the things that you guys want to take into consideration that if you're building any sort of platform, you're never serving just one audience or one segment. The value proposition is going to be for multiple audiences. So in this case, the end user is what we call, that's the youth, right? That would be you guys. So we got to have a value proposition for our end users. But our end users may not be the ones who are buying. You see what I'm saying? So we have to have a value proposition for governments slash nonprofits. We have to have a value proposition for education and community partners. Then we have to have a value proposition for the entire legal industry. I've identified the market segments, again, primary users, and then we have the economic buyers. Because again, the youth, which we're targeting those ages 15 to 24, as the innovator, as the inventor, I'm not trying to have my primary users purchase or buy. They're not the buyers. They're not my buyers. My economic buyers are those that you see listed right there. They're going to be governments. They're going to be justice departments. They're going to be universities, youth organizations. They're going to be law firms. Those are what we call your customers because they're your economic buyers. But the end users, the people that we're trying to positively impact, they are the youth ages 15 to 24. You see how you see how I'm able to differentiate and break this stuff down to you guys. Go ahead and put yes in the chat. And then I have business model. And then if you want to go further, you can think through your go-to-market strategy, your strategic partners, your regulatory, your legal compliance, your competitive advantages, right? What makes you different in the marketplace? And then last but not least, how might you measure success? And I've listed some impact metrics there. So as an investor, if someone wanted to come to me for funding, this is it. If I can see this in 1 to 2 pages, document it, you're in pretty good shape. Now let's move on to step 8, where we're starting to brainstorm your intellectual property, IP for short. This is your strategy, okay? Intellectual property. Now, a lot of people may ask, why do you need an intellectual property strategy? Because again, if this is an invention, you want to protect your inventions. You want to protect your ideas. This is something that came from you, right? You want to protect it. Intellectual property allows you to protect it. And in this case, there are different intellectual property categories that you see listed here. And guess what? These are the different protection types. So these are all the different patents and trademarks that I can file. So not going to go into all the different patents, but I just want to kind of show you the importance of when you build something or when you invent something, you want to protect it. And one of the ways you can protect it is kind of think through, okay, if I'm going to create this, let's use a youth-centered, let's use this as an example, youth-centered user experience slash micro legal alerts. You can copyright this, you can trademark this, right? Because when you look at the column of what is protected, your UX interaction flows, the decision tree. So on the back end, all of those things are protected. The iconography, the names of the platform slash the actual AI assistant, all of that is trademark and it's under your brand. That means no one else can copy or duplicate and do what you're trying to do. Why? Because you have solidified your trademark. And if you want to think about a patent, you can think about what we called the blockchain verification protocol, right? And so, without getting too technical, you can file a utility patent plus a trademark. So again, it's all about protecting your ingenuity, your creativity, your imagination, your ideas. And this is one of the most comprehensive ways of how you can go about doing that. Biggest question I always get asked is how to access funding, right? This is one of the best parts. When you go through all of these steps, there are so many people that are willing to basically throw money at you. And what I wanted to do is I want to kind of show you all the different funding categories. So you may see this term called non-dilutive. That just means that there are people who want to give you like grants, right? There are grant funding, there are government funds, and you see the potential amounts on the right-hand side. That's a lot of money. There's a lot of there are a lot of people who want to basically give you money for your ideas. But as innovators, we have to just understand how do we access this type of funding. And when you skip all the way down to the bottom, I've calculated somewhere between $6.6 million all the way to $15.3 million. That's the total capital potential, just off of the idea that I presented. Isn't that wild? It's crazy, but it's also exciting because some of the best innovations, it came from the youth. It came from folks like yourself. It came from universities. It came from colleges. It came from schools, right? And so these are real possibilities here. And we're going to go ahead and wrap things up really quickly. I want you to always remember this. You are the first generation with the tools to solve problems at planetary scale. Think about that for a second. Planetary scale. What that means is that we are at that inflection point in civilization where we need innovators, entrepreneurs, the game changers, the rebels. We need everyone. We need you guys to think about not how to incrementally make things better, but how might we positively impact over 1 billion people's lives? You don't want to just build technology. You want to build trust. You want to build systems. And sometimes you may want to redesign systems because when you do, you can build movements. Because the next wave of global innovation, it won't come from major corporations, right? Or even governments. It's going to come from you. The world does not need more ideas. Really, what the world needs is we need more bold problem solvers. And so I want to challenge everyone tonight on this call is that I want you to turn your challenge, whichever sustainable development goal that you are passionate about. There are 17 of them. I want you to turn that challenge into your next moonshot. And that is all I have for you guys. I want to be quick. And at this point, we can open things up for some questions. And Marshawn, you are on mute if you're trying to get off. Okay.
All right. You guys, Kris, thanks again for that presentation. Well, guys, just want to give you all just a few minutes here. If you do have anything you want to ask, please feel free to put it in the chat for Kris to talk about. If you all do not have any questions, then we will close out. But I'm gonna give it a few more minutes here for you all to put any questions that you may have for Kris here to answer.
Well, while we wait for that, I just want to say, Kris, actually, some of the things you mentioned, I think were questions we had in our last webinar. So maybe your presentation was just so thoughtful and informational that we're all set. But I wanted to note how you reframed innovation during like days like this or events we have with students. I try to explain differently how innovation works in crafting ideas, but I just loved the innovation doesn't necessarily mean new tech, and so wanted to thank you for that. But
Oh
looks
yeah.
like we got a
Yeah,
question now.
it's all about the transformation that you're trying to have on whoever you're trying to solve. I like to look at it like this. Innovation, is it new to the world slash society? Is it new to your city? Is it new to your country? And if it meets any of those boxes, then you can kind of say, yep, this is deemed innovation.
All right, Kris, looks like we have a question here in the chat.
Okay, cool.
It says, how do you keep going if you feel broken down after the biggest failure?
How do I keep going after I feel broken down after the biggest failure? I like to look at, great question. So I like to look at, for me, it's all about, I mean, there's no such thing as like, failure in my mind, right? Either you succeed or you learn, right? So part of what kind of keeps me going is just you have to redefine what's what success looks like in your mind. Sometimes success isn't always like black and white. It can just be like, hey, did I learn something new? As long as I learn something, as long as I learn something new, then cool. That's a win in my book, right? And then even when you don't achieve the goals that you originally set out, I mean that's okay. You get back on the horse, but you want to just reflect on that, and you always want to ask yourself, what might you want to do differently? What do you want to change? Because you want it to, you always want to reflect of like, man, how come that didn't go as well as I thought? And then you evaluate, you figure out what adjustments need to be made, and then you just get back out there. Life is no different than sports. So just like how you have to make adjustments, whether if it's soccer, football, basketball, baseball, whichever your favorite sport is, that's how you should approach life. And that's how I've been looking at life ever since I was 15 years old.
All right, thanks for that, Kris. Any more questions? Anyone? All right, Chris, I don't know if you can see the chat. There's another question in there. Question is, do you have any words of encouragement for young entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I can write a book. Spark Notes version. So I would say, and Marshawn, feel free to jump in here too. Like you're an aspiring entrepreneur, but would love to just kind of just let you guys know that as an investor, we I mean, we're pretty much like relying on you guys, right? So there's a lot of optimism, there's a lot of faith in the next generation of like youth entrepreneurs and innovators. Like we really need you guys to like feel comfortable stepping up to the plate and being able to tackle some of these issues. Because like I said, we have all of this capital to deploy and give. There's so many programs around the world. You have some of the largest institutions that are willing to back you. They want to write you 6, 7 figure checks to whatever your ideas are, like however your vision of changing the world. You just have to believe that you're the person to do it. That's it. That's like that's the key to life here, folks. As long as you believe that you are him or you are her, like like I can do this. As long as you have that belief, you'll be fine. And that's how you succeed as an entrepreneur. Because if you want to be an entrepreneur, you have to be willing to be committed to the process for like 5 to 10 years. And part of being an entrepreneur is remember, you're trying to make other people's lives 10x better with whatever your solution is. That's one heck of a career path.